This is a test of the Boundary Park alert system. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Boundary Park alert system. I'm Matt Dean and I'd like to start this week's show by saying a huge thank you to everyone who has listened to and supported the podcast so far. Episodes 2 and 3 have totally exceeded my expectation in terms of listener numbers, so I'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening and for getting in touch and sending me positive messages via Twitter. I really do appreciate it. If you like the show, please do make sure that you follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube or wherever you listen, and please share it on your own social feed. We want to get this podcast to be part of a bigger movement that helps us all get back the kind of football club that we used to have, with us, the fans, right at the heart of it. Your support is really crucial, and by listening to this and subscribing and sharing, that's just absolutely vital in getting the word out there. So coming up on today's show, we have an interview with Stockport County fans, Russ and Nick. They're two of the hosts of the Scarf Bagara War, the Stockport County fans podcast, and they have some start warnings and some advice that we really need to pay attention to. I'll be introducing Statman Tom, who's going to be giving us some of the details on the Latics performances this season so far. But to kick off, here's the post-match chat that I had with Will and Steve from Push the Boundary after Saturday's 3-3 draw away at Colchester United. Right, morning lads, I've got Will and Steve from Push the Boundary with me. How are you doing?
Not bad. Yourself?
Yeah, good, yeah. So we're chatting with a point on the board after yesterday's game. The absolute 6-goal thriller down at Colchester.
What a difference a point makes, eh? Doesn't take much, does it?
Well,
off the mark.
I was amazed that we got a point at half-time. I thought we were going to get absolutely bummed. I thought the second half was just going to be more of the same. But this is the thing at League 2 level, because obviously the substitutions that Kuhl made were kind of forced on him in terms of the formation and stuff. But I think Colchester just didn't come out at it, did they? Their mental state was, we've got this wrapped up. And they just kind of, before they knew what had hit them, they were in trouble.
We just started battling in the second half. We looked like we wanted to score, and just a difference from the last few games. One of the things as well seemed to not tap it around the back a lot. We were a lot more direct with it.
Well, we played football in their half of the pitch, which makes all the difference, like putting them on the back foot. And I mean, we've got to give a shout out to Bambula, which is a great name, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be some great songs and stuff and chants about that. But one of the first things he did was just get on the ball and just drive at the defenders and started doing a lot of step overs and stuff, and was just, really, really having a go. And it just made all the difference, I think, to the rest of the team as well, because we've not had anyone who's literally dragged the rest of the team up the pitch like that, have we?
No. I think at this level as well, I think players hate people that just run at them, don't they?
Yeah.
Because, you just don't know what to do. And if they've got a bit of pace about him as well, and he seemed to have that sort of ability to just, you were never quite at the ball, were you? It was this is a ridiculous comparison, but like a one chop or something like that, you're just never quite there, are you, with it? And he was just drawing the defenders in, and I don't think it helped, did it? That they had two guys, I think, on that flank that were on yellow cards, weren't they? So they knew that they couldn't touch him.
Yeah.
And it was just perfect for him to come on, wasn't it? And just say, right, just go at people. We've literally got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And it paid off. Good to see.
We were playing better before he came on, even though but when he did come on, he made even more of a difference.
So there's something it's nice to have something to be a little bit excited about. I think, obviously he comes with some pedigree in terms of where he started his career. He doesn't seem to have, to coin a phrase, pulling up plants in terms of goals scored where he's been recently, but he looked like he could certainly create a lot of goals, and he nearly scored himself, didn't he? He had a shot from the edge of the box which just went past the post. So if whoever signed him, there's obviously potential there. I think what the concern from fans, from what I can gather from Twitter and stuff, is these kind of players with that kind of ability that end up at somewhere like Oldham at this stage in their career tends to be it's non-footballing reasons why they're not performing at a higher level. It's inconsistency, and it's maybe an attitude thing and all that. So that's obviously, we've got to temper the enthusiasm that we have for the performance yesterday.
Definitely.
We can't expect that every game, can we?
No, I mean, I certainly don't want to put a damper on it, because we'll have to put most Latics fans on suicide watch, I think. But yeah, I mean, we saw Moosh. I remember Moosh came in when he played against, was it Peterborough? in Welland's first game, and he looked like an absolute world beater. So you have got to temper it a little bit. But I mean, what a great start, to be honest. If he can do that, then, I'd like to see Kuehl get his tactics right from the off, if I'm honest, because he definitely didn't do that. But to know that you've got a player who's got that kind of ability, brilliant.
Yeah. We just need to send him down to away matches in a taxi the night before every match. Was it 9 o'clock on Friday night? We sent him down there to Colchester in a taxi.
Yeah, it sounds like a few away day stories, doesn't it? Really, missed the bus, so I had to get a taxi down there.
Well, whatever works for him. Yeah, but yeah, no, it made a big difference. I mean, I listened to BBC Radio Essex yesterday, the commentary on the Colchester.
So
they kept calling, Camrick Borthwick Johnson plays for us, and things like that. But it was just interesting to listen to it, the whole thing from a different point of view. But they were very impressed by him. He was definitely the big talking point of the afternoon. And it was a cracking finish for McAlhenney for the third goal. He really smashed that in, didn't he? And he scored a good penalty, took that nice away into the corner. I thought the keeper had saved it initially, but it went right into the corner. And actually quite a good little finish from Pierre Gianni as well, who does get in the mix, doesn't he, on corners and dead set pieces. He's dangerous, isn't he, in the box?
Yeah, I think that seems to be the tactic from corners, doesn't it? It's just absolutely load everybody into the 6-yard box and just put it in the mixer. That seems to be the way that we do it. But no, it was good. Good finish.
Good delivery. Is it Barnett, is it? Barnett?
Was it Barnett?
Barnett?
Yeah, Barnett it was, yeah.
Seems to have quite a good delivery. He put 2 good balls in with either foot. He put a good one in with his right foot, but I think he's left-footed, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's encouraging. I thought he did all right. I think he probably has to start the next game.
I think that's it. I mean, yeah. Hopefully that injury for Badan was not a bad one.
What do you think about that sort of 3 across the back thing? Do you think that's something that with the 3 centre halves, or do you think that we were just lucky yesterday?
No. Throw it in the bin. Throw that in the bin and burn it. Kill it with fire. I think as good as we looked, going forward at times yesterday, like when Bambula came on, defensively, I thought we looked like an absolute shambles, to be honest. I think John Batty, at best, I'll say I'm withholding judgment on him. He doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence.
Same. Looks unreliable so far.
Yeah.
I mean, it just always brings us back round to David Wheaton, doesn't it? It just makes a mockery of the David Wheaton situation every single week. We scored 3 goals away from home yesterday, and we didn't win the game because we concede 3. And that's the 3rd time we've conceded 3 goals in a game.
Third
league
game in a row.
We've played 4 games in the league.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty shocking. 10 goals in 4 games we've conceded. And we scored 6. So it's a worry because we're never going to win games if we're going to concede that many goals, are we?
No.
No. I mean, it's pretty obvious that whatever's going on with Weiss from Woods isn't going to get resolved anytime soon. So we need to replace him. We need a decent centre half to go next to Piergiani. We've made a few signings, but it's all been midfield and forwards. There's a couple of lads from non-league in defence, but really we need someone to help shore up the defence. And again, what didn't help again in the first half yesterday, there was the balls were coming through midfield too easily again. You got Garrity and Whelan in midfield, not protecting the back 4, back 5, whatever.
No.
Well enough, so it's just coming straight through to the defence.
That's not working, is it, as a midfield partnership at all?
Not for me, no.
No, I don't think so. And Whelan yesterday again didn't have a good enough game. I mean, he might show some nice touches on the ball and stuff, but midfield is the place where you need the general, innit? You've got to have someone in there who's
somebody's just going to put the foot on it and control the tempo. And we've definitely not got that at the moment. It was just in that first half, it was just the ball was pinging around and it wasn't sticking in midfield. It wasn't sticking up front. It was just constantly coming back.
There was a lot of sloppy mistakes yesterday, especially in that first half. Really, really poor touches. There was a few from Fage. I don't want to jump on his back, but there was there was a couple of really bad unforced errors from him, which were just, there's nothing that a manager can do about those kind of things. That's what you do training for. That's what you do drills for it on the training ground, so that those things become second nature. It wasn't like that. So we've got to tighten that up. Those kind of sloppy mistakes just keep putting us in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you reckon next then? So who's next? Well, we've got Donny in the cup, haven't we? But who's after that? Is it Morecambe at home?
Saturday, yeah.
So what are you thinking team wise then? Are you thinking Rowe Rose scored and obviously got dropped. Was there rumours that he had an injury, or you got Bambula that came on and played really well? Like, what do you do with that start 11 now then?
I don't know. I mean, Blackwood seemed to disappear a bit out of it yesterday in the second half, thought, when Bambula came on. So, I mean, he looked like a threat on the right-hand side, Bambula, didn't he? He looked like the kind of player that you want cutting in off the right-hand side. Like, I think that's probably the best position to play him if he's going to play one up front, which it seems to be the case. So he's going to play Blackwood up front, or he's going to play a front three sort of thing. McKellen needs to be up. He does. I mean, he's a top scorer, isn't he? So he needs to be up and around the box going forward.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with McKellen. Is he's sort of gone under the radar almost this season, because he's, what's his record now? He's got about 5 goals in like 7 games or something ridiculous. He's a baller, isn't he? He's come down and he's scored a load of goals. He just looks like he knows where the net is, and we've missed someone like that probably in recent history since Owen Doyle.
Well, he needs to, like the goal he scored yesterday was. You're never going to go wrong if you've got a player like Bambula who can drive into the box and cut balls back, and then you've got bodies in. That was how we scored. That's how Nicky Henry and Mike Milligan and all those lads and Henry and Richie and Palmer scored all those goals. We had people getting down and driving in and cutting balls back, and we scored loads of goals from the edge of the box or in and around the penalty area, just being there in numbers to stick them in. And that's what happened yesterday when we actually had numbers in and around their penalty area. Like playing one up top and you're just seeing George Blackwood or Rowe, whoever it is, just aimlessly running around up front without another Oldham player within 50 yards of him. You're never going to score in a million years, are you? It's just not going to happen. And I think that's why people were getting excited about Keeler Dunn, because it looked like he might be a bit of a dribbler, but he's just not. I mean, chalk and cheese when you compare to how he's performed compared to how Bambula performed yesterday. So
yeah, he's not. He seemed to do really well in pre-season, didn't he? DKD, but he's not really turned up this season so far, has he?
Bit of a step up though for him, isn't it? He's been playing non-league. I suppose you can't really expect him to start playing in League 2, being an amazing footballer. It looks like he has potential.
Yeah.
He probably just needs a bit of time and working on things a bit more to get used to league football.
I mean, he's made silly mistakes, and he just bad delivery and things like that, and bad passing. So maybe it's just nerves and all that. Like you say, he's got to adjust. So hopefully that's going to happen. I think Cool needs to find a formation that he's happy with, get everybody in the right positions, and work on that.
Yeah, it seems like he's still tinkering.
Which I suppose you can understand to some degree, but he doesn't seem to have tinkered to enough of a degree that it's made a difference, if you know what I mean. It's kind of a little bit here, a little bit there kind of thing.
It's just the players as well. I mean, he keeps chopping and changing the players. I was quite surprised by the starting lineup yesterday.
So that's one, looking at the hashtag when the teams came out, I think a few people were surprised as well.
The starting players, starting Garrity, and I mean, we didn't see enough of Badan, but from what I've seen of him, he looks a bit better going forward, but he's not the greatest defender. I mean, that was quite risky at half-time, making the second and third substitutions at half-time. Luckily, we didn't get any injuries, but it worked in the end. We got the point.
Well, I'd rather see him do that. That's more of what I'd want to see from him. You're 2-0 down, change it up. So I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did that. That shows a bit of, like you said, I'd rather see managers take risks. Sometimes they come off, sometimes they don't. But there's nothing worse sometimes than over caution in a manager, is there?
I think that's it as well, and it's that frustration of like only starting to play when you're 2-0 down. You need to sort of install that. So from the off next week against Morecambe, we just need to be at it. We just need to be at them completely. Just suffocate and put them under pressure.
Yeah.
Get ahead in a game and just sort of see if we can hang on to it. But yeah, I think based on the first half yesterday wasn't good enough, but the second half did show encouraging signs that we might be about to click, but. We'll see. Yeah,
we'll see. It's very difficult to get enthusiastic or overly enthusiastic about anything. We've been ahead this season in 4 games. We've been ahead for about 40 seconds. So there's definitely a lot of work to do. But at least one thing about yesterday was it was a good game to watch. It was exciting. There was 6 goals in it. And that's what we want, because the other games have been so dull. And it was... just so disappointing that at least there was a bit of something. It was us scoring in the 89th minute for a change rather than the opposition, and so at least that's what you want, isn't it? You want to at least be able to watch an entertaining game of football. So as far as the season goes so far, that was a decent game to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So we'll park that. We'll put that on the shelf. We'll find out how we get on next week. I think if we can build on that with a win against Morecambe, then there's signs for optimism. If we lose against Morecambe, we just feel like we're not getting anywhere, or another point. Points are useless, aren't they, at this stage? It's got to be 3 points that we need. So we'll wait and see. So what about push the boundary activity? What's been going on since the last episode?
It's been a busy week, to be honest. I know we've swapped a few messages, and it has been quite hectic with like different things that we're trying to do. Obviously, the shirts are still selling, so they've gone over 100 now, which is absolutely brilliant, to be honest. So we're really sure. Thanks for everyone that's purchased one of those. I think there's another week, or I think by the time this goes out, it'll be that Friday that they go off sale. So just get your pre-orders in, and then everything should start to arrive sort of between 4 and 6 weeks after that.
So these are the replica shirts that you did in the style of the 91, 92 season or 91 season?
91, 92. So it was the Bovis shirt from that year, and it seems to have gone down really, really well, to be honest. I think we did the World Cup, and then obviously that was the kit that won it, and then we worked sort of quite hard to sort of try and get all the permissions and things to use the Bovis logo and all that sort of stuff. So we're really happy with it, to be honest, and we're really happy with the way that they've sold as well. We know it's not cheap. You know, we're asking people to part with money, but it's for a good cause, and the response has been great. So we've been doing all that this week, and just been sort of trying to prepare a few bits and bats, really. You know, obviously the last few weeks fans have been quite frustrated, for want of a better phrase. So we've just been doing some bits around that. We'll hopefully be able to sort of give you a bit more on that soon. And on Thursday we had a chat with Carl Evans, the CEO. So that was a good chat. Covered a myriad of things, to be honest. It was everything going on at the club, and it was just more really us expressing where fans are at and how unhappy they are, and you know, just sort of trying to give Carl some bits of information around, you know, if we're going to get fans back on side, what needs to happen. You know, we acknowledge it, and he acknowledges there's no silver bullet here in terms of what we do. It was just sort of trying to relay sort of the feeling amongst fans, and how everyone's just pretty pissed off, aren't we? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know,
we were sat with 0 points, weren't we? No one can argue about that. We've got no points on the board. People aren't happy. Yeah.
And I think, you know, the positive thing is that Carl does acknowledge that. You know, he gets it. I think he does get it. Yeah, he does get it. He's clear that he's a football man, and he understands the frustration of the fans. You know, I think at one point he said that when he was at Manchester United and he was doing all the ticketing stuff there, he said when you've got a European final coming up, he says you've got something like 30,000 tickets, but you've got like 6 million members or whatever it is worldwide. He said, don't think for a single second there's not a name that I've not been called on social media. So he said, you know, I'm thick-skinned enough to deal with that. And he acknowledged the GMR stuff and said that, you know, his comments of fans are a little bit unhappy. And, you know, he said those comments were definitely made with raised eyebrows, and you know, he understands the depth of feeling that there is and what it means at a club like us. So we're just trying to educate him on everything that's gone on. And he's a football man, but he's not an Oldham fan. So we're trying to sort of fill in the gaps on that for him, really. So he seems receptive. He wants to set up regular meetings so we can go through things in more detail. He bounced a couple of ideas off us, and, you know, we did the same with him. So the dialogue so far has been good, but we appreciate that things have got to start moving and got to start looking a lot more positive very, very quickly. But there's only so much he can do with that. You know, obviously the on the pitch stuff he's not really responsible for. You know, one of the things that we did stress with him was how Kuehl has come across so far, and that he's not necessarily endeared himself to the fans' early doors, and he's come out with a few comments that haven't gone down particularly well, and we've just sort of said, listen, you know, if Kuehl's going to be a long term, then he needs to sort of open up to the fans a bit more and engage with them, because let's be honest, he's not really done that so far, has he?
No, he's not made any effort whatsoever to do that, to even acknowledge that there are fans now. I know that there's no fans at the games, but all he has to do is, whether or not he's on social media and he's like, you know, looking at that, who knows, but, well, he is on social media, I think, but, like, you know, I don't know how much attention he pays or whatever, but yeah, there is definitely some of that. I mean, it's a weird situation that we're in because there's no fans. It's very unusual for a manager to take over at a club and never be face to face with any of the supporters. there's a level of exasperation, desperation, panic. There's all kinds of really, really raw emotions going around from supporters at the minute. I've had the chat with the county lads for the podcast. They were telling us about lots and lots of really interesting stuff. Their message was, you can't underestimate how volatile the situation is, and you've got to be able to act. You've got to be able to do something about it, especially with what's going on with COVID and the finances and all this kind of stuff. It's not just us, but football at our level is in a very, very perilous state, isn't it? And, we're all sick of what's been going on for the last few years, but, we've never been in such a vulnerable position.
No, absolutely not. And I know we're only, 4 games into the season. We are where we are. Yes, we picked up a positive point yesterday, but ultimately we're third bottom. And if Grimsby pick up a point in one of the 2 games in hand that they've got, then we're in the relegation zone. And yes, you don't want to get too worried at this stage, but I'd rather get worried now than after 40 games when we can do absolutely nothing about it. So, let's just continue to raise those red flags. But yeah, early signs with Carl have been positive, but you need to start seeing results. You need to start seeing some action, I think.
And Will, you mentioned on previous podcasts that you've been involved in the trust and you've been on the board. We put a direct call out in the last podcast for the trust and then to reach out with PTB and to get involved and chat. Has that happened, or is anything moving on that front?
Yeah, so we've got in contact with the trust. The problem they have on their side is that obviously they're a new board, and they're still trying to find their feet and get their first meeting done and dusted. But once that's happened, we really need to touch base with them and see what their plans are, what their vision is as a new trust, and then we can see if we can work with them, see if there's anything we can do together, if that's something that they want to do. So we put the call out to them. We've got in contact with them, and we're just waiting to see what comes back from that.
Have they responded?
Yeah. We sent contact to Philippa, and we've been speaking to her, but then obviously she needs to speak to the rest of the board and get back.
It's just a case of trying to keep fans up to date, really. That's been one of the major frustrations, isn't it? That people not knowing what's going on. So we're going to try and use the podcast as a way to keep people informed. If there's not that much to tell them week by week, then we'll tell them that. But if there is, then we will. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. They had a process at the end of their AGM, so all the directors that have been appointed, they've got a process to wait so long after the AGM. So I think they're just following their processes, and then they've got their meeting to plan in and take it forward from there.
I think it's to do with like appeals and complaints and things like that they've got to wait a certain time. And I think once that's done, then I think that, and everything's sort of set in stone, and they can kick on. But yeah, I think it's one of those who appreciate that they're a new board, but also, as the county boys were saying, time is of the essence.
Definitely.
It doesn't feel to me like there's a sense of urgency coming out of the trust in terms of taking into account everything that you just said and appreciating all that. The sense of urgency of that we've got to steady the ship here and make sure that nothing really, really bad happens. And they've got I don't know what kind of plans they've got for re-engagement with fans and stuff like that.
This is what they need to work out. They need to work out quickly, to be honest, because I think, I think in the past they've always sort of tried to, they've had a way that they would deal with fans, and I think it's probably kind of tail wagging the dog. I think if anything, the fans should be the ones that dictate to the trust how it operates, in the sense of we are with no fans, they don't exist. So they have to sort of learn how to engage with fans better. Hopefully, we'll see that soon. It'd be great to work together with them to actually sort of have a kind of a 2-pronged attack on things that are going on at the club. Because if we do that, then the message is even stronger. Especially when you consider the 3% that they've got as well. Let's start throwing some weight around with regards to that.
I mean, the message coming out of the county lads was, unity is so important at this stage. We've all got to come together. There's no point us all fighting and working in different directions. We have one thing in common, and that's that we want Oldham to survive and to thrive. So cooperation is everything.
Yeah, I know Russ. He was on the cooperative board at county. I think they had quite a lot of different factions. Like they had different groups, and And I think when things were really starting to go down the pan, I think they all came together as one group. So they sort of took somebody from each group and said, right, well, we're going to have like a unified board, and did it that way. So, and I think obviously we've not got as many groups as them, but I think the same kind of unity needs to be shown. We're all in this together, aren't we?
Yeah. And ultimately we all want the same thing. It's just people have different ideas about how we're going to get to that point, I guess, and how we're going to do it. So that's what needs. It's not going to be easy, is it? It's not going to be easy. We've got to. Trying to make. You probably know yourself from Push the Boundaries. There's only 4 of you. I'm sure you have your disagreements and sometimes there's frustrations with things moving forward, and it happens it happens in couples, for God's sake, all the time. You know what I mean? So like when you're trying to do that on the behalf of thousands of people who are all very, very different. One thing that unites us is football, but we could be divided on everything else in terms of our politics and how we think about things and our views and how we do things. So it's not an easy thing to coordinate football fans and get everyone working on the same page, is it?
No, and we do, we do have, I wouldn't say disagreements, but we do have things that we don't necessarily want to do the same way. But I think we're all of the same mind that if we're going to put something out, it has to be right. It has to be done for the right reasons, and we have to be the vast majority of us need to agree that it's the thing to do. So otherwise, you'll just fall foul of things. So yeah, they need to find that direction.
It's just simple democracy, but you've got to have the numbers, sufficient numbers to be able to say that. Look, this is what we've had a vote. X amount of 1,000 people want to do this, and so we're right behind. That's what we're going to do.
I think that's it. And whatever we do, and I guess whatever the trust do, it has to be done with weight of numbers behind it.
Yeah,
that's the thing. And I think the important thing for us is to work out what those numbers are. I know we've said it in the past, but are things as bad as they perhaps seem on paper? Are the people who just shout loudest on Twitter about protests and things? Do they represent the majority of people? I think that's the kind of stuff that we need to find out. And I think we know what the answer is going to be. Don't get me wrong, but I think we need to be fair, and we need to put that out to people. So I think there might be 1 or 2 bits coming out from us this week in terms of that. We've had conversations with Carl. We've let him know our stance and our thoughts on that. And we've also had a chat with the FSA as well. So we've given them the heads up on things. So there'll be some bits of stuff coming out from us this week, I reckon.
I've been asking fans every week to get in touch and get involved with the podcast, and I'm delighted to say that Thomas Berry from Wrexham has been in touch. Thomas is currently studying sports journalism at Preston Uni and expressed an interest in doing some match analysis for the podcast. So I had a quick chat with him.
Even as a younger child, loved the stats of the game and watching a football match and picking it out piece by piece, even when I'm sat at Boundary Park. So there's no better opportunity than to jump on and just provide a bit of an insight into some of the more in-depth parts of the game if people are interested in that sort of stuff.
Some of the games are so boring at the minute that it's hard to stay engaged, and if you know what I mean, and actually study what's going on the pitch sometimes, because your mind starts wandering and you start getting bored. I don't know if you find that, but I certainly do.
Some games definitely, yeah. You sit there and think, God, I haven't seen a shot on target in 70, 80 minutes, and you just can't help but think, God, what have I paid to watch? But sometimes it's just smaller things, like as a team's attacking, you think there's 3-on-2, you try and predict where the ball's going to end up and how they're going to end up trying to work it into the box, and seeing, so-and-so played well last week, so how are they going to do this week, and seeing if they're included, and just the adding things up aspect of it all, really. It's quite good when you've got it on a piece of paper in front of you and you can see everything that's happened throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, like breaking down the sort of individual elements that make up the whole. So we'll see how that works out anyway. We'll look forward to you giving us some insight into how we're getting on statistically, and also looking at our opponents as well. And you might be able to give us some insights, and maybe some insights into where we might be able to do some damage.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth having a look at and seeing who's obviously performing well. Obviously fans themselves will be able to have their opinion each week on which players play best, but from a statistical point of view, it might be good to just get the stats out there and help a few people make their minds up.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you're from Wrexham in
I am
North
indeed,
Wales, yeah. And you're an Oldham fan. So how did that come about?
It was my dad, really. He's from nearby, Ashton-under-Lyne, and moved to Oldham when he was a lot younger. So he went to Boundary Park, watched a couple games, and as he said, he got hooked, and we'd travel every week from Wrexham when I was younger to go watch Oldham at Boundary Park. So if we'd won, it was a fantastic journey home. If we'd lost, as you can imagine, it was pretty quiet and not the same. So
you had plenty of quiet trips home then, yeah? Yeah,
plenty of quiet trips, especially on a Tuesday night as well.
One of the things that I've noticed from doing this podcast and people getting in touch, though, there's Latics fans everywhere. We're all over the place, all over the world. And even no matter where you are, once you're hooked, aren't you? Even if we've always been crap. That's your experience, I think.
I was going to say, being 20, almost 21, I've only known League One football. The best I ever had was Ronnie Moore and John Sheridan, the good days of that. So to hear the stories from back in the day of the Premier League makes you a bit jealous. And as you say, people travel from all over to watch Latics. You see Twitter accounts posting that they're from America, and even travelling into the games from Wrexham. Me and my dad would always pass a car coming past us on the motorway that had an Oldham scarf in the back window coming from North Wales. Yeah. So we weren't the only person making that journey every week.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll all be making the journey and enjoying it and seeing some success again pretty soon. So good to talk to you, and looking forward to your first analysis. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, Thomas.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
So I asked Thomas to go away and have a look at the season in statistics so far and give us a quick summary of where we're at when it comes to the facts and figures.
I think looking at our season so far from a statistical point of view is not good reading. Looking at just the league games alone, we are a team that has not had more possession of the game by one game, which was the game against Crawley. Leyton Orient game, first game of the season, we only had 3 shots on target and we only forced their keeper to make 2 saves. But then when you look at the Leyton Orient stats, they only had 3 shots on target themselves. It was more of a case of getting the ball in good areas to take those shots. When we go to the Stevenage game, that was an absolutely awful performance. Stevenage, a team that had not won at home in over a year, had 21 shots, 12 on target, whereas Oldham only had 11 shots and 1 on target. The chances created have been poor this season, and we really needed to change. Against Crawley was where we saw the change most. We had 15 shots and 6 on target. We were starting to build on something and look better. And then to come into this weekend's game against Colchester, there was a lot of changes, there was a lot of restructuring the team, and that didn't work for Harry Kewell in the first half. We'd only had 1 shot on target by half time, which is all we had in the Stevenage game, and it was looking like we'd be going along the same lines for that game. But then, with the half-time substitutions, and it has to be given credit to Harry Kewell as he's got them right in this game, but especially with Baham Bula coming on for his debut for Whelan, we started to cause problems straight away. The Colchester defence couldn't deal with Baham Bula. It was absolutely fantastic the way he was playing, and he got the ball to get the penalty from McElhaney, who has been an outstanding player this season. He's got 3 goals in his last 2 games. He's absolutely fantastic. He's been brilliant all season and got 6 goals in all competition, 3 in the league. He's really impressed many with the quality he's shown, and he's definitely our outlet. He's our top goal scorer this league with 3 goals, and going against Morecambe, a team that have only kept 1 clean sheet this season, he could be really key into getting a point. I think the area we've shocked most is the amount of corners we've won. Although we've not had many shots, in every league game we've played this season, bar the Stevenage game, we've had 5 or more corners, which for a team that hasn't really scored freely and has only just scored their first away goals of the season against Colchester, we've not really scared many teams. They've always had the ball more, they've always been in control, they've been pressuring us, for then us to have to fight back and try and find something.
This is a test of the Boundary Park alert system. Right, so I'm chatting with Russ and Nick from the Scarf Bagara War, the Stockport County podcast. I've reached out to them because, as Oldham fans, we're all a little bit uncertain about what our future might hold. And one of the things that comes up quite a bit is, well, at least we're not Stockport, or we're not Bury, or we're not Macclesfield. But I'm not entertaining the thought of Bury and Macclesfield just yet. Let's start with the possibility of relegation out of the Football League. And who better to ask about that than a town and a team that is local to us, Stockport County. So welcome to the podcast, lads.
Cheers.
Thank you.
I must admit, I miss Stockport County as a fan. I lived in South Manchester for about 10 years, so like going to Stockport away was my local nearest ground, and local rival. You don't want to be missing out on your local rivals, do you? Those trips are the best. So I do hope that Oldham and Stockport play again soon. I hope it's in the Football League though, as opposed to the National League. Where did it all go wrong for Stockport?
I'll just start by saying getting relegated to the non-league is the least of your worries. Yeah, we got relegated in 2011, and that was the worst thing that could ever happen to us.
So we thought.
Oh, so we thought. Yeah.
Nearly 10 years ago. That's mad.
Yeah, and then we got relegated again to the National North League.
Yeah.
Which again was just abhorrent. We were just beside ourselves, and then we were getting beat by the likes of Rushall Olympic. We were getting beat by Vauxhall Motors, Colwyn Bay at home. And it was just absolutely disgusting. So I'm right along, Nick. But what we've done, I mean, we started our podcast in 2015, so we're right slap bang in the middle of kind of no, probably not what you're doing. You're doing it a bit early, actually. If what comes, I hope doesn't come for you, but it's looking like it is, because that's the way things are seen from the outside. We started in 2015, and then Nick joined in 2016, and we had nothing. We had loads to talk about, but it was all negative. And we actually recently started a mini series on the side of the dark days. So we've got a mini series of podcasts just detailing all the, what would you call it? Fred Carno circus has been a theme throughout it, of charting with people who were at the club at the time, who were employed by the club, and one of them was employed by Oldham as well later on. He was your media manager later on after he left county, charting exactly what happened over, I think we're up to about 15 hours worth now of podcast, and we've only just got to 2015, I think. Oh no, 2014. I think
still got the next 6 years to cover.
Yeah.
So you've been out of the Football League for nearly 9 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, things started going wrong at County before then. Do you see any similarities between what's happening at Oldham and what happened at County?
It seems that way. Just from, I mean, my limited knowledge has just been from looking on the Oldham message boards and seeing what people are saying on social media, and straight away it's just like deja vu. There's been a few people for a while who've been warning about something like this happening. It was the same with us as well. There was people months ahead of everyone else saying this is all going to go to pot. And then when it did, they were just sat there saying, "Well, I told you so."
The main similarities for me are, and this is at different points in our history, in our recent history. So this it's not sort of parallel to what's going on at you, but the ground we had with once Sale Sharks left, the ground was. Well, it was retained by Sale Sharks, wasn't it? Retained by Brian Kennedy, so we're paying rent to him. So there was, what I'm saying is there was infighting, and there was a lot of uncertainty around the ground, which there is at Oldham Athletic with the North Stand, is it?
Yeah.
So that's not owned by. I don't know the details, so I just know that it's not part of the full thing, is it?
No, it's not. It's not owned by the club. No. It's all. I mean, there's 3 parties involved at Latics. It's all very messy. Nobody really knows it off the top of their head what's going on with all that.
Yeah, well, that's it. So that's kind of where we were in between 2006 and forget when the council bought it off. When did the council buy it off Sale Sharks?
We're talking within the last 5 or 6 years, aren't you now? So
yeah. So there's that similarity. The other similarity is one really that didn't really take hold at County is you've got an owner now who, on the face of it, to me, seems like a charlatan. Doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't look like he's capable or has the capacity to run a football club. And we almost entered into that with one particular guy who came along flashing some banknotes. So we dodged a bullet there, really. But the other thing, I guess, is similarity is manager after manager after manager. We went through that. We had one resign on the pitch. We had famous managers, Didier Mann, like you've had Paul Scholes. We had Didier Mann for how 7 months or something. I can't remember.
Yeah. I think he came in in June, and he was gone by about October, I think.
I think he did. I was just having a quick look on Wikipedia before. Did he win about 3 games in 20 games or something like that?
There's a lot of draws in there, strangely, but it was very uninspiring.
And do you think that what happened was it was kind of like an avalanche or whatever? Like there was just kind of this building of momentum over time until it got to an unstoppable point? Or how would you? What are your memories of the whole time?
I think the start of it all for me was as soon as the ground was separated from the club, you've got big trouble there, as you see. But for me, it was going into administration, and then any other club that goes into admin takes it as a chance to get things right and start again from scratch. But we just seemed, after administration, to lurch from one disaster to another.
Yeah, so it's that lack of structure, I think, and lack of sort of cohesion with anybody inside the club. And I think I mentioned it to Steve, and he mentioned it on episode 3 of your podcast, that a couple of Stockport fans had mentioned 2009 to him. That's because, and the similarities are, that's because in 2009, that's when we had our first administration. That's right, isn't it? When we were in League One, just got beat by Brighton away at their old ground. I was there, but I can't remember what the ground's called.
With Dean.
With Dean, that's it. Yeah, so, that put them ahead of us because of our points deduction. We didn't go down that season, went down the next season, and then it just started to fall. So we had the trust, our own trust, had the club in their custodianship. Yeah. That all went to rat shit. They were people doing the best. So, they're not business people, they're not football people, although the football fans doing the best for the club. Yeah. That sort of went, didn't it? Then we had another group, the 2015 group, that came in to run it for a bit. Didn't really have the resources to run it, to take it back up. So we just went into free fall, basically.
I feel like if I had one of those little bells that you have on a counter at the bank or at a shop, and I could just ding every time you said something that just rang similar to Oldham, I'd just be hitting it all the time, I mean, supporters trust. We've obviously got one which is doing its best, let's say, to put it kindly, but it's doing it ineffectively, and it's just kind of shrunk virtually out of existence, I think, or out of relevance. Your trust got to take over the club, which, so there's no saying that once you get to that point that is something that a trust is capable of being able to manage. It's one thing to say, the fans need to own the club. It's another in practice. That's why I said before, it feels like once a certain chain of events starts to unfold, it all seems to go in one direction, and that's what it feels like with us. Like, I think that's basically what you said earlier on. It was just like one chain of events after another. Yeah, it is.
It was just one catalogue of errors, one after the other. We got unlucky sometimes. It was incompetence sometimes. It was just being unlucky sometimes. Some of the stories we've heard on the Dark Days stuff, it's just jaw-dropping. It really is. Yeah, and the trust took over. I was a member of. I was on the board of the trust after they collapsed and left the club, so it all went to sort of dissipated. And I wanted to do something a bit like yourself. I wanted to get involved, try and do something and put some time into it. And I went to a supporters trust, a course in Manchester, and there was other supporters trust there. So you had representatives from Blackpool, Wrexham, FC United. I was there, Rochdale. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. And we all went around the table and said what our grievances were and why we were there. Why were we trying to learn how to run a supporters trust? And the reason why I'm telling you this is because Blackpool were there. Blackpool had just come out of the Premier League with a parachute payment, was second or third in the Championship at the time, and they were sat at the table, and they'd said their piece, and everybody else around the room just went, "What? You're third in the table? You just had a parachute payment?" And this was, I forget when it was, how long ago it was. It was obviously when they came out of the Premier League. But those fans there, those two fans sat there, were creating their separate trust because they didn't trust the one that was in place. The fans one. They were starting their own because they did not trust the Oystons. They said they're going to ruin us. We're going to free fall if we don't do something about it. And then what happened? We were all sat there laughing at them. Yeah. But it played out, and you can. I hate to say it, and I don't like, but it's playing out at Oldham.
Listen, you're not saying anything that there is a small band of Oldham fans that are walking around with bags on their heads and corks in their ears, trying to pretend that everything's all right and sucking up to the owner and stuff like that. But you don't have to be a genius to see what's happening, and it's been happening for years. You'll have to give a plug out to those Dark Days episodes, because I think they sound really interesting. I think Oldham fans could probably learn a lot from those. Just from and hopefully we can avoid some of the mistakes. I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask you: what do you think we can do? Is there anything that we can do to try and stop the rot and turn things around?
I think you constantly need fans like yourself to be pushing. I think that was the one thing for us, that there were always a few voices, no matter what happened. When stuff did start to seem as though it was picking up, there was always people chipping away, saying, "Well, what now? What now? Why this? Why that?" It's staggering. Over the last 10 years, I've noticed. I thought it was more of a 90s thing, but it seems to be quite prevalent nowadays that people just want to go to the game, go home on a Saturday, and that's it. And I thought that kind of attitude had died out, but I've noticed the last decade of getting more involved with the county, I've found that is the case. There are people who just aren't interested. So it's about keeping the interest of those people, really, and making those people realise there's something going on.
From my perspective, having been part of the trust, which, I mean, Nick was on the board of our, well, it's a co-op now. Nick was on the board not shortly after me. What somebody quite prevalent, it's quite well known in Stockport County fans, in sort of the fans' name. He basically got all the different factions of the football supporters clubs and trusts and things and pulled them all together into one. Yeah. So we had an official supporters club, a junior supporters club, a trust, other things out there. He just got everybody in a room and said, right, we need to sort this shit out now. Let's all get together and call it something, one thing. Let's be together and sort of pull in the right direction. It just so happens that the co-op was one of those as well, the Stockport County Supporters Co-op. The co-op was the only one, which I was part of at the time, it was the only one that had the legal framework behind them to hold a Guardian account, or to have votes for who's on the board at the once a year at an AGM. As much as it died away, the co-op, we were very conscious that we needed to keep that light burning, no matter what happened. We wouldn't let that light go out at all for the co-op. Mm. Once, he's called Dave Schofield, and I've mentioned him to Steve as well. I think you should have a chat with him if you haven't already. He was part of that. He got that together. He also organised earlier on, further upstream, marches to the ground, and marches to offices where he knew these people were doing wrong. I forget the detail now. It's all in the Dark Days series. Yeah, so he got them all together. And I remember the conversation. He sort of said, right, now we're all together. We need an organisation that's got the framework for holding some sort of Guardian account so we can start raising money. And the co-op we put our hand up on, well, we've got that. So it all started to gravitate then towards the co-op. I don't know if you agree, Nick, but I think that was a massive start of it, because then the co-op started to get a voice then, and then slowly started to get itself invited to the meetings as a bona fide sort of organisation. Yeah. So the boardroom meetings, it got a voice with the chief exec, and they started to take us seriously then.
That was certainly the start of the upturn that we've seen since then, both on and off the pitch. That was the co-op getting involved, definitely. I mean, that Guardian account that you mentioned, that's up to about 60 odd grand it's up to now?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And another sort of key thing we did was the... what was it? The ground was we registered the ground as a
asset of community value.
That's it, an asset of community value. We got that registered. So because we didn't, the ground was our ground once we lost it in 2004 or whatever it was. It's always been up in the air. So we registered that so that if somebody wanted to buy the ground, they had to consult the co-op first, and that's how we played it, so that we safeguarded the ground. Because if we lost the ground, then that's the heart ripped out of Stockport County.
Yeah, because you don't have a home, do you? You've got no focal point.
No, that's it. The only asset that the club had throughout those whole times is the fans. I remember pre-season last season we had a friendly at Latics, and I just remember looking around thinking, this isn't the Oldham that I knew. We won 2-0, and that was on the pitch. Off the pitch, it was just desolate. I couldn't believe my eyes, and it's like you've got, I don't know, separation throughout the club. That's what it feels like, outside looking in.
The hope that I get from all this is and what it does is it shows people like Abdallah and more of the owners the fans aren't going anywhere. It doesn't matter how desperate it gets. They're going to stick together and they're going to do what they need to do to keep the heart of their community beating, which is the football club. And I've no doubt that after all this, Stockport County will be a better football club. It will be a more important football club to the community. And what you've done to keep it alive will, in the long run, will be worth it. And you'll look back on your dark days and your podcasts, and you hopefully you'll be able to record a series which is, you know, the bright days, the future, the opposite of that. You know what I mean? And you have your ups and your downs along the way, like all football clubs should and could, because you need to have perspective, don't you? You don't. This is what I'm a bit worried about with these elite clubs now going off in the other direction, that they're losing all perspective on. Football clubs have their ups and downs. It's part of what it's supposed to be about. There's not supposed to be a monopoly of brilliance and a monopoly of misery. He's supposed to share it around a bit. That's the whole point of having promotion and relegation. But, you know, we're talking about extremes. But I just think what you've done is and should be inspiring to Oldham fans. And I think what you said about the types of fans is interesting as well. You do have the types. I mean, I talked to my mum and dad about this stuff. They just want to turn up. They've been season ticket holder for many years. They just want to go to the game and go home. It's part of their routine. And then there's others that are can see what's going on and, you know, are trying to mobilise. And so how do you think that those people can engage the other people in and sort of make them aware enough and desperate enough to realise that they need to act as well?
Yeah, you've got to act. I mean, we've the way that you're talking probably suggests that you don't know what's happened to us recently, which is we've had a huge investment, and that's come through years and years of painstaking trying to clear the decks and get the club into a position where it can be invested in. Yeah. And we've had shareholders that have held on to, I don't know, 10 grand that they owed, you know, it was 15 grand that they owed, and this has been what we on now? It's been an 11-year journey, really, probably longer than that, trying to clear those decks and keeping the club alive. I mean, I'm sure Nick will agree with me on this. What you've got to do, you've got to act and get out there. You know, the amount of times that I was stood outside the ground handing leaflets out about the co-op, you know, to people who haven't got an internet connection, don't do Twitter, all that kind of thing. Here's a leaflet. Oh, what's this about? Oh, blah, blah. I got called a trouble causer on many occasions, you know, from people who just want to go to the ground and watch the football.
What they don't realise is that if you're not standing there handing out leaflets, the day's going to come where they ain't got a football club to go and watch.
Exactly, yeah.
So fair play to you. And that's really why I wanted you on as well, because it does give us some hope, and hopefully the people that are listening are going to want to get involved and they're going to want to do their bit and they're going to get in touch. I've had emails from Nova Scotia this week and all sorts of stuff, you know, saying that I've lost interest in Latics over recent years, but I've listened to your podcast and I'm fired up now, and we want our club back. And if we have to end up down where you lads ended up, then that so be it. But the point is that you don't give up.
Yeah, you'd rather. I think a phrase that I've not heard yet, but I can feel it coming. You'd rather be a Stockport than a Bury or a Macclesfield, because we kept hold of our club by hook or crook. Those lads haven't been so lucky, have they?
I think that's why it's been harder for us, though, I think, because I mean, it's one thing dropping into non-league, but and the same applies to Oldham as well. When you're a club that's been like within the last 30 years, Oldham have been in the Premier League. So for a club who's had that recent history up there to drop into non-league, it's just unthinkable. When it does happen, I'm sure Russell will agree. The first season we dropped into non-league, there was an element of our support thinking, it's only non-league, we'll smash it.
Yeah, definitely.
First game was Forest Green away on a Friday night.
Yeah,
and it was just we're here now. This is us now for a while. I didn't think it'd be over 10 years that we'd still be here.
Because you still get decent crowds, don't you? You've got a good away following and you get decent crowds at Edgeley Park. So like what you always think is, they have far more fans than anybody else. So they're going to have far more money than everybody else and they're going to be able to spend their way out of the league. But that's not obviously how it works,
no,
is it?
It doesn't work. Doesn't work like
the
that.
last 6 months where that's been the case, I suppose. Up until 6 months ago, we were still paying debts off to shareholders and stuff. So there was just a black hole where money was disappearing, seemingly.
Yeah. So the money was coming in from the fans and going straight on maintaining the ground that we've got and paying the rent for the ground that we've got, and like Nick was saying, paying off shareholders. It's only since January the 7th that it started to look good for us.
I think that the really important message here is the fans have kept the club together. You've made it investable. You've made it investable. What you've done is, like you say, cleared the decks, and you've made it so that it's appealing to anyone who's got money who wants to come in. And then because of your role in the infrastructure of the club, you can be selective about who that person is. What was your role in accepting investment and investors?
Well, we can't really say, because I think the co-op must have been involved in or kept abreast of that. There's two elements here. Another thing that I've got to mention, all right, fans groups got together. We pulled up to one and sort of had the voice that way. We had 2 volunteers who worked for the club voluntarily, but still had day jobs, that kind of went in and ran it. George Hudson and Steve Bellis. They were absolutely instrumental in turning the tank around, getting rid of all the money that we're hemorrhaging, bringing back little things like the kids' sweet stall on a Saturday, and all these little bits, and making the corporate day run again. They did loads more than that. I'm probably underselling it there for him, to be fair. But that's what they did. So that's, as well as pooling the fans together. We had people on the inside. So I can't sit here and recommend what you should do, but that's what happened to us, and that really, really worked. That helped clear the decks, and it got. Not only did it do that, it got more fans behind it, because we had these 2 county fans in the club now, doing things the county way, and the way we, as fans, they were doing it, and not as like businessmen who didn't give a toss.
I guess the difference there that immediately comes to mind is you had that opportunity because there was nobody else to do it, whereas we've currently still got the ownership in place, and they're hiring and firing, mainly firing. They're doing all that, so it's very difficult for us to actually get that in the club at the minute. Until it all goes proper tits up is when we could do it, which obviously we don't want to happen. But
no, but when it goes tits up, you need to be ready, don't you? With some sort of organisation that's powered up to run a football club,
which is supposed to be Trust Oldham.
We thought our trust were ready for it, and they weren't. And that was, that was another torpedo into the bow.
Yeah. Some of the false dawn, wasn't it? They got shot down.
Yeah.
What I will say is, I think it's more the stuff that Russ mentioned about getting county fans on board. So they started doing more work in the community, getting free tickets out to schools and stuff. Yeah. You need to be doing that from before you drop out the league, ideally, because we went about 4 or 5 years without anything like that going on at the club. Until those people Russ mentioned came in. And when you're trying to get something like that up and running, when you're in non-league with clubs like United and City down the road, it's nigh on impossible.
Yeah, I mean, Russ, you know Steve from Push the Boundary, and they started that a year ago because there was obviously a hole in what the trust were doing or weren't doing. So there is some momentum. My initial thoughts, and I've put something to Push the Boundary, which I'm waiting for them to come back to me on, is we need to do more. We need to do a lot more. And we need to do it now. There's no time. The time to hesitate is through the doors, because we are wallowing in the mire. Try now. Come on. You know what I mean?
You need to do it yesterday. I mean, Just going back to clearing the decks and then our new investment. I mean, the not rumor. It's been mooted really that's been a 2-year process itself. They were interested a long time ago, and then they've had talks and talks and talks and talks for 2 years. And I believe that our co-op, I think I'm pushing it when I say, could have vetoed it or could have made decisions as part of a vote or whatever. I think that's stretching the truth a bit too far. But I'm sure they were kept in the loop. I'm 100% sure of that.
I mean, once you've gone through all that effort, all that suffering, all that volunteering, losing to teams that I can't even remember the name of now, and all that, for someone to then come in to the club who was again wrong for the club would be just heartbreaking, wouldn't it? It would, you know what I mean? That can't happen, can it? I think I think that's one of the things that is really upsetting for us is everyone was so set under Simon Corney, just slowly strangling the club, and just becoming more and more lifeless. And then I'm only going to sell it, he said, to the right person. And then he sells it to these. And it's like we was optimistic for about 20 minutes. And then it just...
I think
how much of it do you think he's actually on the Football League as well? Because they're their experience of doing what I've seen of the fit and proper persons test. Some of the charlatans being allowed to run football clubs. So do you blame them a lot as well, or?
Well, the way I look at it is, whenever there's large organisations that deal with large amounts of money, just follow the money, and then you'll see where the problem is, where the corruption is, where the self-interest lies, where the lack of doing things properly, and just taking the cream off the top. It's always the way, So yeah, of course, like you've got the EFL, the Premier League, contrasting interests. Football in this country should be seen as a one whole entity. What happens at the top affects what happens at the bottom. What happens at the bottom at the top. You could have one of your lads at County. It could be the next Georgie Best. If United want to buy him, United will offer you peanuts for him. You know what I mean? But if they want to buy him from Borussia Dortmund, they have to pay hundreds of millions for him. And it's all wrong. Like, the whole system is just wrong. So, yeah, I know that the Premier League clubs were having a meeting the other day about, should we, help out the lower league clubs, with these little bits of money that we desperately need. Shall we? Chelsea is spunking 200 million on players while the whole country is fucked. Football's lost it's criminal, really. So, and to answer your question, yeah, the EFL, but the whole system is fucked. And how do you sort that out? You know what I mean?
Well, it seems to be when like an old, not just old historic clubs, but community hubs, these clubs are as well. When they're going, like Macclesfield and Bury are going bump, there seems to be a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of, it's such a shame. But again, like you said, nothing changes. That's it. It'll just be, we're doing it for someone else in 12 months' time. There'll be another club and we're saying, it's awful, isn't it awful?
It's almost like there's a resignation, though. It's like, greater Manchester clubs are dropping off like flies, include Cheshire in that, Macclesfield, and what's happened to County, what's happened to Bury, what's happened to Bolton, what's happened to Wigan, what's happening to Oldham. It's like, oh yeah, well, we've got City and United. Well, fuck City and United. What about all the rest of us? It's a nightmare. It's really, really sad but the apathy and that kind of seems to permeate the towns as well. Like you were saying before, the urgency to try and keep the clubs alive just isn't there from within the towns. And maybe that's from within the leaderships of the towns as well, the councils and the local governments that should be saying, this football club is at the heart of this town and we need to keep it alive. We need to make it thrive, and there just doesn't seem to be that desire at a political level to do that either, does there?
Our fall into non-league certainly coincided with having I think it was a Major League Manchester City-led council.
Yeah,
in terms of fans, yeah.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
So it was only when we got some Stockport fans involved in the council that things started picking up, both in terms of the town and the club. Actually,
it's ridiculous the amount of revenue and for the economy. Thousands and thousands of football fans. Crawley brought about 65 fans with them the other year. 65. They would have all come on a coach and then buggered off again. They didn't spend a penny in the town. What you want Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday turning up. There'll be 6,000 of them if you give them the tickets. And then, they'll be drinking in the pubs and they'll be, they might tear it up a little bit, but that's what you want on a Saturday afternoon, isn't it? Exactly. You want it, that, we need that. That's what we need. And if there was enough money in the leagues so that football stayed, and it wasn't too expensive and the stadiums were busy, there's no reason why from top to bottom in the English divisions, there shouldn't be full stadiums, 10, 15, 20,000 fans rocking up every week, having the crack, jumping up and down, and it should be like that. Towns representing themselves in other towns. I'm dying to go to Stockport and meet up with you lads for a couple of pints before the game, and just the thought of doing that. Even now, I've not been for a pint for I don't know how long. But we can't go to a football match. It's just very, very sad, and I get inspiration from talking to people like you lads and what the county fans have done, because unfortunately, I think we're going to be in that position pretty quickly.
Yeah, it does get grim. It does get grim. I remember being at Colwyn Bay away. Colwyn Bay is not a very nice place anyway, and it was on a bank holiday Monday, so nothing happening. And there was about 300 of us on the main street in a couple of pubs. And my uncle, who's a lifelong county fan, I said, have you seen this? This is shit, isn't it? I said, look at it. And he went, yeah, but when we're back in the Football League, at least you can say you were there. And I was like, yeah, maybe.
That's the only reason I've still been going for the last 7 years.
But yeah, it is bobbins. I've been saying to Steve, who's part of your podcast, don't wish about going down. I think in League One, when we were talking, he was saying, well, if we went down to League Two, at least we could reset ourselves and come back up. I said, no, don't wish that you go down, because it's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, I know. I see that on Twitter all right. I see that on Twitter. Would you rather get rid of them and go down and all this kind of stuff? And it's like, no, well, we need to work out a situation which is the best solution. We need to fight for that, not just one or the other, or accept this or accept that. I think there is momentum in football, and it's even goes downwards or it goes upwards. When that ends, is like it's just too unpredictable. So,
because I know a lot of people thought we were bitter about dropping. I mean, obviously we were bitter about. I mean, we dropped out of the league after 100 and odd years. But in the 70s we came very close with re-election every year. There were a few years where we should have dropped into non-league. So it wasn't so much the dropping down, like you said about momentum. Eventually we would have done. It's the manner in which it happened. It seems to be something that you're living again now. But at least you have got people trying to hold the club to account, which is half the battle. As soon as you've actually got people with with that frame of mind, then I think it does help. It does start to make a difference, even though it seems like it's not. But yeah, a lot of the time it is sinking in.
Well, you know what? I think that's a good place to end it, because that's an optimistic and positive note to end on. Do you want to just give a shout out to where people can listen to your podcast, and especially those Dark Days ones? Because they sound very interesting to us.
Yeah, so we've got a website. It's scarfbagaraward.co.uk, and in there's all the links to all of our podcasts, and we've got a YouTube channel where we've got all of our previous podcasts, recent previous podcasts, and that's where the Dark Day series is as well. And I think we're up to 5 episodes, so there's about 13-14 hours of content there, and that goes into a lot of detail. So, yeah, strap in.
Thanks very much for your time, lads. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, cheers for having us.
Hopefully we'll get to speak to you again and be able to have a pint in the Football League.
Definitely. Fingers crossed.
In Stockport sometime soon. Cheers, lads.
All right.
Brilliant.
Cheers, Matt. See you later. Bye.
The Boundary Park Alert System is a Studio 6 production. It's hosted, edited and mixed by me, Matt Dean. You can contact me on Twitter at DublinOAFC, and the show on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at OAFC Podcast. Our email is bpalertsystem@gmail.com for all your voice messages, and please, if you like the show, do review and subscribe on whichever platform you listen. If you'd like to know more about Push the Boundary, you can visit their website pushtheboundary.co.uk and follow them on Twitter at PTB_OAFC. The title music for the show is by DJ and producer Starion, and you can visit redlaserrecords.bandcamp.com for more information. Thanks for listening.